Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. Tonight we are recapping the penultimate episode of Mandalorian Season 3, from Navarro to the Great Forge and everywhere in between. My name is Mike Gibson. With me, as always, is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
Well, all of us Expanded Universe fans are very excited about the beginning of this episode. Yeah. So that's about what's up in my book, outside of an outstanding and, dare I say, best of the season, probably top 5 Mando episode.
Wow, top 5. I thought it was very good. I don't think I may have not thought it was like as mind-blowing as a lot of other people did. I thought it was very good.
I think a lot, you know what, in hindsight, because I think I was listening to another podcast about this too, where a lot of the people that have extremely highly ranked it are old EU people.
Sure. Okay.
So
that makes sense. I know people that probably hated it are those whiny babies who kept thinking that Mandalorian was going to erase the sequel trilogy. And it was dumb to think that. But I've seen all along how it lines up with the sequel trilogy. And now I feel like this episode really kind of hammered it home. Like, no, we're leading into the sequel trilogy. You guys are idiots. We're not going to retcon or erase or whatever episode 7, 8, 9. Like, that's part of it, and we are building to it. Much like Clone Wars made the prequels better, this is I believe that this is going to make specifically. I believe they're specifically trying to fill the plot holes in episode 9.
Yeah,
Rise of Skywalker. Yeah,
it'll make the sequels much more palpitaneable.
yeah. And I mean, I guess we can get into why we're saying that in a bit. But Steve, why don't you walk us through? I believe my guess is that when you say EU fans were happy, you are talking about. I don't remember if it was the first scene, but certainly an early scene in the episode.
Yeah,
the,
second
council
scene. Yep.
Council meeting of the holographic leftover Imperial generals, or
Yeah, so the first scene in the episode was on Coruscant, and it was the spy. I cannot remember her name. It was like
she met with
B-56 or whatever.
She met with a probe droid there.
Yeah,
whatever.
So she hung out with a probe droid and talked to Giancarlo Esposito in his debut as Moff Gideon this season.
I know. I didn't think he was going to be in this season.
Yeah,
I was surprised to see him.
I was thinking this was like the get him back in the consciousness and then bring him back next season.
Yes.
Apparently that is not the case, because holy shit, he showed up this year and this week.
Yeah.
So that was the opening scene. Kind of set the tone for the episode. You also got a couple of cool shots of the Coruscant underbelly. Always good to head back there. I would like to head to Dexter Jettster's diner and have some random breakfast with Obi-Wan. But
agreed.
So there was that, and then we go directly into the Shadow Council,
Council, that's what they called it.
Yeah. So the really exciting point from all of us EU fans was the, I guess, prominence of Galad Pellaeon, who was second in command to Grand Admiral Thrawn in all of the Expanded Universe. He showed up, I believe, in the last episode of Rebels, was his first new canon appearance.
Oh, cool.
But the fact that they're using him to flesh out and kind of portend the coming of Thrawn is a really kind of exciting moment, just because of what he became in the EU, and like he was kind of Thrawn's protege through the whole thing, and was just overall a great character through the EU. He ended up actually becoming the leader of the Imperial Remnant after Thrawn and after the New Jedi Order, Yuuzhan Vong War, the basically galactic collapse, and he was still, an honorable admiral that like helped unite the remnant of the Empire and the New Republic, and really fleshed out character, really good characterization, and just a pleasure to see him in the forefront and them using him as a character.
Yeah. Those of you who don't know, this is the guy with like the older guy with a mustache that was talking a lot about we need to wait for Thrawn. Like he was like really like
not Ularn.
Really nailing it home. Like
there's only so many old white dudes with a mustache that we can show and not expect everyone to think they're the same person, but this is a different person than Wolf Yularen, who we talked about before.
Right. And this guy was making it clear that he thought Thrawn was their only means of salvation, and once he gets here, everything will be okay and all this kind of stuff.
Which likely will be true, but it's going to be a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think so. They also threw to a younger guy who I am blanking on his first name, started with a B. Brendel, but his last name was Hux.
Mm-hmm.
You may remember the name Hux from, what's his rank? General?
General Armitage Hux.
General Armitage Hux from the sequel trilogy.
Yep.
We meet him in Force Awakens, and he's in all three of those films. And this guy's his dad. Am I correct on that, Steve?
That is true. And funnily enough, played by his brother.
Yes. Awesome. So cool.
It was great.
Someone was going to have some kind of family resemblance. It's perfect. Great idea.
So for anyone who didn't know, Domhnall Gleeson played Armitage Hux in the sequel trilogy. His brother Brendan Gleeson is playing Brendel Hux, his father, in this episode, which is it's just hilarious that they were able to make that work and awesome at the same time. Yeah.
The other thing, I mean, besides Moff Gideon requesting bombers and executors and is that the call executors or interceptors? Yeah, okay. And
the executor was Darth Vader's starship or flagship, the Super Star Destroyer.
That's why I'm getting confused. He ordered I'm blanking on all these words. I want to say petroleum guards. That's not what they
Praetorian guards.
Praetorian. It's like they're not petroleum guards. That's the only word I can think of.
They just smear you with Vaseline, and that's how they win.
Yeah. Everyone's just gross and sticky. Oh, okay.
We're done. Sorry, we got to walk away.
Yeah. Praetorian guards, who you may remember from an epic battle between a group of Praetorian guards and Rey and Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi, one of the greatest fight scenes in all of Star Wars, I believe, in my opinion. So another nod to the sequel trilogy.
Yep.
And if that wasn't enough, in this same scene, and Steve, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think I am. One of the shadow people says to the other one something about we need to focus our efforts on Project Necromancer.
Mm-hmm.
My interpretation of that is this Project Necromancer is bringing back Emperor Palpatine.
Right. I'm assuming it's the program that made us Snoke and got us Palpatine back.
Yes.
So this is the eponymous somehow. That Palpatine returned.
Yeah, and honestly, I could almost kind of interpret it as, okay, there's this really terrible excuse and terrible line in Rise of Skywalker. How do we make that an accurate statement?
Right.
And the way you make it an accurate statement, I guess, is doing all this in the background with a shadow council. You don't make it a big public thing that everybody in the First Order knows about. You don't make it a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this little tiny cabal of generals that are working on it, and it's a small project. It's not a big, it's not like First Order troopers are walking around, hey, what about Project Necromancer? Kylo Ren doesn't even know about it. I'm sure General Hux doesn't know about it. So like they're trying to make that somehow Palpatine returned line make more sense, and it kind of does by like keeping it in the shadows. I feel like that's like the best way to go about it. Like they have to do it in a way that nobody knows about it until because that's how it happened in real life. No one knew it was happening until they told us he was coming back, and in the universe, no one knew it was happening until they heard some broadcast that we never even heard in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but that's the thing. I mean, you said it earlier. much like the Clone Wars made Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith better.
Yeah.
This seems to be trying to fill those gaps and make it so that some of the stupidity from the sequel trilogy actually does make sense when you have the full story. And that's great. I mean, it would have behooved them to maybe take that time up front.
Could say the same thing about the prequels, my friend.
Right. But
and
here
I'm
we
sure
are.
there are people out there that could argue that they could have done the same thing with Return of the Jedi. There's a lot of people that do not like Return of the Jedi.
Dude, the Luke and Leia kiss. Like, George could have thought about this before he had his, you know,
he didn't.
His brother and sister making out. Like,
that's a thing that, like, you could point to that when so many people, and I mean, I'm one of these people that are frustrated by the fact that they didn't plan out all 3 movies, but, like, you know what? George Lucas didn't plan out all 3 movies down to the detail, or he would not have had Luke and Leia kiss in Empire Strikes Back if he knew they were going to be brother and sister in Return of the Jedi. He didn't know that.
Dude, the first EU novel, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, is like all sorts of twincest going on. Like, there's some weird... George did not plan anything in the beginning. Like, I hate that they didn't plan it now because of what it's become.
Yes.
But, like, you can go as far back as you want on it.
Exactly. It's a tradition in Star Wars.
Right.
Hopefully, maybe not one that will continue in the future. Fingers crossed. But
yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was really cool. And then we go to the kind of the main, not really the main, but like the more main part of the story of this episode was the Mandalorians kind of abruptly, after just settling on Navarro and just meeting the other clan of Mandalorians, awkwardly sharing a dinner together. Next morning, they get up and they all leave their new found settlement on Navarro, and they go to Mandalore to try to retake it. And it seemed pretty abrupt, but I guess, when you only got 8 episodes, you got to move things along pretty quickly. And so they go to Mandalore to
like something so simple as like a little 2 weeks later at the bottom.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Something where it didn't seem like it was within hours of them settling this new place in Navarro.
We're so grateful for these new tracts of land that you've given us. We're about to get the hell out of here right now.
Thanks, Grief.
Okay.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, goodbye. But they go and they send a small party down to the planet's surface, including all of our main characters. Oh, we didn't talk about Grogu living inside of IG-11. That's a little vehicle.
So he's now a Gundam mech.
Yes. Yeah, he's got a Pacific Rim style robot for himself there.
100%, which has been used to great comic effect in this episode.
Oh my God, so funny. Yes. I was
this close to titling this episode just yes, no.
Oh man, it was so funny. And he's like grabbing those like Melurons from the street or whatever and squishing them and then just has to keep paying like, sorry, no, yes. Oh, it's great.
So good.
It's so funny.
And then we also missed the I Am Spartacus moment. Of the volunteering for the mission to Mandalore.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes.
Everybody and their brother was like, I'm going. No, I'm going. I'm going. Yeah. Like, okay, guys, come on. We know everybody that's important here is going to go. We get it.
Yeah. I felt like that was a little, I mean, I guess they had to show some unification.
Right.
So
after
I guess
after Grogu breaks up the X-Woves and Paz Vizsla battle.
Well, that was once they get to Mandalore. That was on like
that was
I think the boat they were on there on Mandalore. But yeah, they had to show some like some coming together of the two factions there. So that made sense, I guess. But yeah, it was kind of just like, okay, here's our list of all of our main characters that are obviously going to stand up and say yes, they're going.
And which of these makes sense to go? Maybe half of them.
Yeah, yeah,
like,
exactly.
Why are we sending Grogu? I don't know.
Yeah, he should not have gone. Other than that, he just doesn't leave the side of
like the armorer. Why is the armorer there? Why does the armorer leave?
Why does the armorer leave?
Because we talked about one spy, and the episode title is Spies.
Spies, yes. And I mean, let's just go through it real quick. They get ambushed once they get to the. I mean, we can go back in detail if you want, but they get ambushed when they're searching for the Great Forge by Imperial troopers.
And this is
and
after they found some latent Mandalorians that were just chilling on the planet that somehow didn't notice when the last 2 trips to the planet happened. In almost the same spot. So that was kind of weird.
Star Wars, I feel like, mostly treats planets as if they're very tiny unless they need to be bigger. And this was a situation where they needed it to be bigger. But a lot of times, like, someone says, like, oh, I can't go back to Tatooine because you can't go to any spot on the whole planet?
Right.
Because they're going to know, like, really? The whole planet?
Meanwhile, Obi-Wan Kenobi can hide in the desert on the same planet for umpteen years. Yeah. Totally makes sense.
Totally fine. So a lot of people online are questioning the actions of the Armorer and believing that the Armorer is somehow in league with Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon? Moff Gideon. He's not a moth.
Flaps away.
Yeah.
He did kind of fly away.
He did fly in this episode. Yeah, he did fly away in this episode. You're right. And my wife said that too while we were watching it. She's like, I don't know if I trust her. This doesn't really make sense. And if you think about it, it could go either way, I guess, because it seemed kind of an abrupt turn for her to suddenly welcome Bo-Katan into her faction, allow her to remove her helmet and go unite the other people that she historically has had no fondness for whatsoever. She's been a staunch believer in the way.
Yep.
And suddenly, no, it's time to unite all Mandalorians. We need to gather them together. Like she says, we need to gather all Mandalorians. And then at the end of this episode, Gideon says, thank you for gathering all of you together in one place. Like he literally uses the same language. And it is suspicious. She volunteers to go. She takes the first chance she can to go back to the fleet, but I feel like they're just going to blow up that fleet. So like,
and you would think she would know where the forge was.
Yeah, but I think the problem is a lot of the cities seem to be like buried underground.
Under the glass.
It's harder to find exactly like how to get there or where. But yeah, I know. Yeah, it seems like like if you were there, if some of you survived the purge, you should know. And they do find it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They have it's a bit of a drive, I guess, but.
And I mean, for her, like, from Concordia, possibly, Death Watch related. I mean, her helmet is very Mandalorian.
She gets asked if she's Death Watch, and she does not answer the question. She says Death Watch doesn't exist.
Right.
That's not a yes or a no. Like that is,
and then our favorite Moth has a helmet that, weird, also has Death Watch style maul horns on it.
Yeah. Yep. So things are looking a little iffy around the Armorer, and a lot of people are picking up on it. So I guess we'll see. We'll see, like, to the extent to which she is involved. I hope they have a good reason why she would sell out. Because, like, yeah, she believes in her own faction, but also, I don't know. It's like but like members of her faction are getting slaughtered as, specifically, Paz Vizsla gets brutally killed by the petroleum guards.
Yes, after holding the line, he gets fully coated in Vaseline.
Fully coated in Vaseline. But that was a pretty brutal death for the show, I feel like.
There were a couple during that fight scene that were just like, there were like people getting double tapped to the head and stuff, and you're just like, wow, we went there.
Yeah, but he gets stabbed several times.
Yeah.
And then just that's pretty brutal. They kidnapped Din Djarin. They kidnap our main hero, the Mandalorian, separate him from Grogu as the rest of the Mandalorians flee back to the surface, I guess, of Mandalore. And we don't really know what's going to happen to him there because their ship is gone. They don't have a way back, or do they? Wait, did they? They're just far away from their ship.
Right. They took the whole skiff.
Wait, no, didn't the Armor take their ship back to the fleet? The wounded. Yeah. So they don't have a way off of Mandalore right now.
As one does.
So, very interested to see what happens and where it goes. and why it goes there, and
Right.
why, if the armor is involved, what is the level at which she's involved. And it just seems like she wouldn't. I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something else. There's got to be some other motivation, because if she's so loyal to the way and to the faction, I don't think she would sacrifice members of her own clan. You know, I don't know.
Right.
Could be wrong, but I don't know. We shall see, and we shall see this Wednesday
Mm-hmm.
on the season finale of Mandalorian season 3.
Oh.
Anything else you want to say about this episode?
Yeah. The Imperial Super Commandos.
Yeah.
Like, he's
Is that what
cloning. He's cloning new Imperial Super Commandos. Like, that's crazy.
I'm sorry. Like, are those like the troopers that came out at the
Yeah,
end?
you remember in Rebels
Yeah.
and Clone Wars the white armored, like the Gar Saxon Imperial Super.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes.
That
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
line
that
right up.
armor, that was that armor.
Yeah.
And it's
you're
like, you know, that's his plan, is to basically create clone trooper Mandalorians that are really, really good at what they do. And yeah, that
I guess so.
it seemed to work, unless they found Paz Vizsla, and he mowed down umpteen of
he
them.
sure did. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just cool
Yeah,
to see
that's
that
cool.
in live action. Like, we had
It really was.
seen that in animated numerous times, but like,
Yeah.
to see that armor in action was pretty solid.
I saw at least one person on Twitter kind of like malign the fact, they're like, yeah, it was a good episode, but I didn't watch Clone Wars, I didn't watch Rebels, and this show is like leaning so hard into that lore of a cartoon that came out 10 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever. Like, it's losing me a little bit because I didn't watch those, and I'm not going to watch those. He's like, I'm sure they're great, but I'm just not going to watch those. And I get that. So I guess that made me think for the first time. I was like, oh, I gotta wonder if like people that haven't seen those shows, are they tapping out? Are they like, I don't get what's
Right.
going on? Like, I feel like it's doing a pretty good, like, significant, like, it's making it work without having known that, you know, like that Shadow Council scene is still cool. You know, like, oh, I keep hearing this name Thrawn that keeps coming up, you know,
Right.
every once in a while. Like, that still looks cool. Like, you don't even have to know that Hux is General Hux's dad or whatever. Like, and things like that armor, like, that's a deep cut for somebody like you who remembered that from the animated series. But like, you don't need to know. They just know that they're like super stormtroopers or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. You got to wonder, like, if they keep.
Well, how's,
especially like,
you know, you're watching it with your wife. How's she holding it?
Oh no, she likes it a lot. Yeah.
Right.
So I think they're doing an all right job, but I think I think there's clearly some people out there that are like, you know, kind of turned off by it, or not getting as much out of it.
Right.
And maybe because they're seeing everyone else rave about like these little things, they're like, I don't care about it.
Well,
And it's
in
gonna be
all honesty, it
interesting
might
when
be
they-
those people that are like tied in online but haven't watched it.
Yes, I think
Like,
that, yeah.
people that
probably.
are trying to get in on the conversation that aren't there. Whereas someone like your wife, or like whenever my wife gets around to watching it, they're not going to care. They're just going to see the show for what it is, versus realizing they're not even going to realize that they're missing something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's if you make a show, any show or movie that's in a shared universe, if you do that well, then it doesn't matter if they've
Right.
seen the other things. It'll be interesting
See
to
Andor.
see what happens when Andor, but when Ahsoka comes out, we know from that trailer leans heavily into storylines and characters from Rebels.
Yeah, that's going to be
It'll
interesting.
It'll be interesting to see if people can still pick that up. If they're just like, oh, look at all these great new characters that I love now.
Yep.
You know, how much background are they going to give you on the last 4 episodes of Rebels, you know, before you care about whether or not she finds this Ezra guy that you've never
Mhm.
heard of or seen before, you know?
Oh, to get
Will be
people
interesting.
buying into characters that we've known for a bunch of years now is just like, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, the MCU did it.
This is true.
Yeah. Like, I remember walking out of Iron Man, oh shit, just unplugged my microphone. I can't hear anything that I was saying just for the first 2 seconds. I remember walking out of the first Iron Man movie with my friends, and then after the post-credit scene, them asking me like, who are the Avengers? What does that mean? What's that mean? I was like, oh boy.
We're in for a ride.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, this Wednesday, season finale, Mando season 3. Started slow, picked up pretty big time, and someone, I think was it Filoni or Favreau, described the final episode as like something it's going to hurt. I heard something like that. Yeah. So great. Can't wait.
Well, if it's going to hurt, do you have any calls you want to make? Any predictions you want to make?
That makes me think it's going to be a death.
And my brain says, like, Din and Grogu are off the table.
Agreed. I hope Bo-Katan is off the table. Because
that was going to be my prediction.
Carl Weathers?
I think it might be Bo-Katan.
You think so?
I think it might be.
Ooh,
because they gotta hit. I don't either, because Katie Sackhoff is killing it, but like to make it hit and to make it stick,
right?
It's her or Carl Weathers, like characters that have been with us for a while and are prominent, and like they've been featuring Weathers a lot more this year, which also makes me think that it might be him when you said that.
Or maybe it's something like, in classic Star Wars, maybe one of them loses an arm or a hand or something.
Right.
Or it's just like the betrayal of the armorer is like such a deep, like the reason that she did it or the why is like such a betrayal that like that's gonna,
right. Something like that throws Din for a complete loop or.
Yeah. And it would. It would. We might be seeing his face a lot more in season 4, which by the way, we haven't seen his face yet this season. I feel like we get I guess it's been in the final episode every time though.
Has it?
I think. Well, when he
no, because it was the Bill Burr episode.
Oh yeah, you're right. He did it twice in season 2.
Yep.
You're right. Forgot about that. So we haven't seen his face at all this season. So maybe Wednesday.
No matter what, we're gonna get the Mighty Morphin Grogu Ranger, and go from there.
Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, that's all I got to say. Stay tuned. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we're gonna end this episode and then come right back with a full weekly recap episode of all the nerdy news. And it's a packed week. We got a lot of stuff to get through. As Steve mentioned before we started rolling here, the opportunities for us to go on tangents is all over the place. So I don't think it's going to be quite as long as the last week's 2-hour Star Wars celebration episode, but you never know. And
if anyone missed that last week, go back and check it out. We had a guest on, Tom Babcock. We ended up going off for about 2 hours and change on the celebration news and what's coming in the world of Star Wars. So feel free to check it out.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, check us out next. We're talking a bunch of different stuff: Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Game of Thrones. So stick around. And until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the multiverse.